There's a moment in life that doesn't come with alarms. No warning signs, no dramatic explosions, just a quiet discomfort that settles like dust. Suddenly, the life you built feels like it belongs to someone else. You look around, the job's still there, the relationships are intact. The calendar is full. From the outside, nothing's fallen apart. And yet, something inside you feels like it's missing. Or worse, like it's unraveling. You're still showing up, still doing all the things. But if you're honest, you don't feel connected to any of it. You've become a guest in your own routines. You smile in conversations where you feel invisible. You nod along to plans you quietly dread. And while the world sees someone steady and responsible, you feel like you're fading behind the performance. But here's the strange part. You don't know how to explain it. Because technically, nothing's wrong. No breakdown, no tragedy, just a subtle ache, like your soul doesn't fit in your skin the way it used to. And this is the moment where most people retreat. They double down on familiar roles. They silence that inner voice. They chase new distractions, more productivity, louder applause, hoping it will drown out that gnawing disconnection. Because standing still in the unknown, that feels terrifying. So they run, but not you. You didn't run. You didn't numb it, and that means something. It means you're not numb enough to accept a life that no longer feels like truth. It means your awareness is waking up. It means you've reached the edge of who you used to be, and something deeper is beginning to stir. Most people ignore this moment, but the few who lean in, who stay present in the dissonance rather than escaping it, they discover something rare. Not answers, not clarity, not at first, but an invitation to stop performing and start aligning. If you feel like you're drifting inside a life you once worked hard to build, this isn't your collapse, it's your calling. And if you stay with it just a little longer, you'll find that you're not lost. You've simply outgrown the mask you forgot you were wearing, and now it's time to come home. We all play roles. Some of them were handed to us, others we picked up along the way because we had to. The achiever, the peacemaker, the responsible one, the strong one who never wavers, never cries, never asks for help. Maybe you became successful so you'd be safe. Maybe you stayed quiet to avoid conflict. Maybe you became the fixer, the reliable one, because someone had to be. And for a time, it worked. That performance protected you, it earned you praise, it gave you identity, it made you feel valuable in a world that often confuses performance with worth. But here's the hard truth. You've likely begun to feel the role that once saved you can eventually start to suffocate you. What once made you feel powerful now feels heavy. What once helped you belong now feels like a barrier. What once gave you structure now feels like a script you didn't write and no longer believe in. And the tension is growing louder, the smile feels forced, the small talk feels hollow, the old ambitions don't excite you anymore, they just drain you. You look around and realize the mask doesn't protect you now, it hides you. And yet, most people stay in the role because it's familiar, because it's praised, because it's terrifying to ask, if I stop playing this part, who am I without it? So they double down, they move faster, hustle harder, say yes, when they mean no, all in the name of being consistent. But the Stoic does something different. The Stoic doesn't numb the ache, they listen to it. They don't label discomfort as weakness. They treat it as revelation, because they know that when something starts to itch, to burn, to feel off, it's not a defect. It's the beginning of truth trying to break through. Epictetus wrote, "It's not events that disturb us, but our judgments about them. It's not the role itself that is the problem, but the attachment to it, the belief that you won't be enough without it." But what if this discomfort isn't a crisis? What if it's a signal, a sacred turning point, a moment of shedding, not shame? You're not betraying who you were. You're making room for who you truly are. Let it itch. Let it burn, not as a fire of destruction, but of illumination. Because the only thing more painful than outgrowing an old performance is pretending it still fits. When life starts to feel misaligned, most people panic. They tighten their grip on what they know, the schedule, the title, the expectations. They chase after the next accomplishment, the next notification, the next distraction. Not because it helps, but because it's familiar. And familiar, even when painful, feels safer than uncertainty. Most people silence the discomfort by speeding up. They say, it's just a phase, and power through. They call their anxiety motivation, their burnout dedication. They drown themselves in productivity and give it a noble name, responsibility. But the Stoic does something that looks strange from the outside. When the ground trembles, they still their breath when the urge to run grows louder. They get quiet instead, not because they're passive, but because they know you can't realign what you won't sit with. There's a strength most people never tap into because it requires stillness, not action, the courage to do nothing. To stop reaching outward for validation and start reaching inward for truth. Clarity doesn't come when you chase it. It comes when you return. Return to reflection. Return to the body. Return to silence. The sacred classroom where the deepest truths surface history gives us a model in Marcus Aurelius, an emperor responsible for an entire empire amid plague, war, betrayal, and personal loss. And yet, at night, while cities collapsed and decisions waited, he returned to a leather-bound journal. He didn't broadcast strength, he questioned it. He didn't seek escape, he sought understanding. This was not weakness, this was mastery. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." The world will always offer you escape routes, more success, more doing, more noise, but the Stoic sees through the illusion. They know the only refuge is self-awareness, not reaction, not perfection. Return, so when you feel the urge to retreat into old habits, pause, because stillness isn't stagnation, it's strategy. And while most run from the storm, the Stoic stands still, long enough to walk through it and into who they were always meant to be. We have been taught to fear the feeling of being lost, to treat uncertainty like a problem, to see disconnection as a failure. Because in a world obsessed with clarity, purpose, and answers, there's little room for honest confusion. So when that fog rolls in, when passion fades, familiar roles grow tight, and the things we used to love feels strangely hollow. Our first instinct is panic. We ask, what's wrong with me? But what if that question itself is the problem? What if you're not lost at all? What if you're just in between identities? The snake, when it sheds, its skin doesn't know what it looks like beneath. It simply knows that the old layer no longer fits. It's not dying, it's becoming. And maybe, so are you. Maybe the structure you built years ago was perfect for who you were then, but now, the conversations, the environment, the expectations, they feel like echoes, like a costume that once felt safe, but now suffocates. Not because they're bad, but because you've grown past them. Ask yourself, what roles have I outgrown? The fixer, the overachiever, the always available one. In what rooms do I now feel too small? Where do you feel yourself shrinking just to be included? Where? Do you smile out of habit, not truth? These questions don't signal collapse. They signal growth, the slow, painful emergence of who you really are beneath what you've performed. Epictetus said, "Know first who you are, then adorn yourself." Accordingly, but most of us do it backwards. We adorn ourselves first in titles, in identities, in other people's expectations, and then struggle in silence. When it stops feeling true, you were never meant to stay the same. What feels like disorientation might actually be the wisdom of your soul saying, it's time to take off the armor, time to hear your voice again. You hadn't gone off the path, you've just come to the bend in it. And there's a beauty in that, even if the world doesn't recognize it, even if it doesn't look impressive, even if it feels terrifying to sit in a life that no longer fits. Without rushing to fix it, you're not broken, you're just between skins. The shedding isn't weakness, it's the evidence of your evolution. So let the layers fall, even the ones that protected you, because the version of you waiting beneath doesn't need armor. It just needs your permission to breathe. There's a subtle kind of exhaustion that doesn't come from doing too much. It comes from being too much of what you're not. We live in a world that rewards performance. Say the right thing, smile. At the right time, be agreeable, impressive, charming, reliable. Be what they expect, even if it costs you your peace. And so we learn to act, not dishonestly, but strategically. We adapt, we mirror, we adjust ourselves like stage lights. carefully dimming or brightening who we are depending on the room we enter. At first, it seems harmless. This is how we belong, how we succeed. But over time, a strange feeling emerges. You begin to lose track of where the mask ends and you begin. Most people keep going. They mistake applause for alignment. They pursue more accomplishments, stack more roles onto their identity, and wonder why they still feel empty. Because most people are performing the life others expect of them. But the Stoic no longer wants to impress. They want to embody. They don't just act. They align with virtue, with clarity, with inner truth. Because they know peace doesn't come from appearing consistent. It comes from being congruent. Let me give you an example. I once knew someone everyone admired. A leader, a parent, a high achiever who always showed up for others, always on. But behind the scenes, their nervous system was eaten alive by anxiety. Their body was breaking down. They couldn't sleep. Why? Because they were performing excellence, and excellence without authenticity is pressure, not power. Eventually, they paused. They took off the mask, and for a while, everything felt unfamiliar. They were quieter, slower, more real, but over time, something amazing happened. They stopped impressing people and started connecting with them. Think of it like this. Imagine wearing shoes that are one size too small every day. You get used to the ache until one day you don't want to walk at all. That's what performance does to the soul. Presence is different. Presence asks, who am I when I'm not trying to be liked? What would I say if I wasn't managing everyone's perception? So how do you begin? Here are 2 places to start. Practice honest micro moments. If you're tired, say so. If something doesn't feel right, pause before agreeing. Test truth in small doses. A no here, a deep breath instead of a nod there. These small turnings build trust with yourself. Check in with alignment, not image. Before reacting, ask, is this response from my script or my soul? Pause, breathe, answer from presence, not pressure. You don't have to perform to be loved. You only have to be true to be whole, because presence isn't earned, it's remembered. And the moment you stop acting is the moment you finally come. Home, we're taught to treat emotional intensity like a malfunction. Sadness is labeled as weakness, restlessness, just a lack of discipline, anxiety, something to suppress, silence, sedate. And yet, despite all the masking, the distraction, the language of coping, the ache still finds its way to the surface, because it isn't chaos, it's communication. People miss this. They view emotion as a threat. They pathologize every uncomfortable feeling. They try to fix what was never broken, just misunderstood. But the Stoic learns to listen. They know emotion isn't the enemy. It's a message, Epictetus said. Don't demand that things happen as you wish, but wish for them to happen as they do. What if your emotions, raw, loud, inconvenient, are not interruptions to your growth, but invitations into it? What if they're not symptoms of dysfunction, but signals of truth? Here's how most people misread what they feel. Anxiety isn't always irrational fear. It's often a sign of misalignment, a quiet knowing that you're living off course, acting out of sync with what you value. Burnout rarely means you're incapable. It often means you've been functioning without boundaries. Trying to prove your worth through exhaustion, disconnection, doesn't make you broken. It may be the soul's way of whispering, you're outgrowing the life that no longer fits. But instead of letting these signals speak, we label them as problems, and we reach for something to dull them. A screen, a goal, a habit, anything to avoid sitting with the discomfort of deeper truth. The Stoic does the opposite. They study the ache, they hold presence in the pain without flinching. They let emotion become a compass, not a crisis, because the truth is, your emotions don't want to break you. They want to guide you. They're not interruptions to your logic. They're data from your deeper self, asking to be heard. So here's a journaling prompt. If you're willing to listen, what am I feeling deeper than I expected this week? Where did something small feel disproportionately heavy? What stirred beneath the surface that didn't have words yet? What moment made you feel more sensitive than usual, and why? Don't write correctly. Write honestly, messily, as if no one will read it, because no one will. This isn't for consumption. It's for clarity. You are not a problem. To solve your ache is not a flaw in the system. It's the system, trying to evolve. You don't need to fear the depth of what you feel. You just need to slow down. Long enough to let it speak, because beneath the ache is the answer. One of the hardest parts of growth isn't what you have to learn, it's what you have to unlay from. It's not just old habits or outdated beliefs, it's letting go of the identity that once made you feel safe, seen, worthy. Because the truth is, we often build ourselves to be loved. We become the reliable one, the successful one, the fixer, the strong one, the one who never needs, never asks, and in return, we earn praise, respect, approval. But what happens when the version of you that everyone celebrates becomes the version that's quietly strangling your soul? Most people ignore it. They think, if this role got me here, I can't possibly give it up now. So they hold on, even as it no longer fits, even as it's draining them dry. But the Stoic sees it differently, because the Stoics never built their identity on image, not on how they were perceived, not on how loudly they were applauded. They built it on virtue, truth, character, who you are when no one is watching and nothing is guaranteed. Seneca, one of the most powerful men in Rome, lost everything. Wealth, status, comfort, even favor with the emperor. But he didn't break, because he had already let go internally of what the world could take from him. His clarity came not after his losses, but through them. He wrote, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a person perfected without trials." So here's the question. What version of you have you kept alive? Not because it feels true, but because it feels expected. Maybe you were praised for being productive, so you became the overachiever. Maybe you were applauded for kindness, so you forgot how to say no. Maybe you were celebrated for being dependable, so you stopped letting anyone in. At one time, those patterns protected you now. They feel like chains. Most people will carry these roles to the grave, letting them define every decision, every relationship, every silent act of self-abandonment. But the Stoic makes the harder choice. To evolve on purpose, to let go before the weight becomes unbearable, to release who they were praised for being, to make space for who they actually are. Letting go isn't failure, it's the doorway to freedom. And sometimes, the most courageous thing you can do is stop living someone else's definition of enough and start becoming your own. A strange, often uncomfortable space in every journey. A pause between the person you used to be and the person you're still becoming. It's the in-between, not quite here, not quite there. And it's where most people get scared, because we've been trained to hate uncertainty, to label confusion as failure, to rush discomfort with 1,000 fixes, plans, distractions, and new goals. Society doesn't reward stillness. It rewards speed, regardless of direction. But the Stoic refuses to rush. What's sacred? They know that not every silence is a void. Some silences are invitations. Seneca once wrote, "If one does not know to which port one is sailing, no wind is favorable." And if you're in a season of not knowing, of floating, shedding, the old but not yet standing fully in the new, maybe you're not lost. Maybe you're just pausing on purpose. This is where real alignment begins. Not in the hustle, but in the hush, not in blazing forward, but in listening to what surfaces when you stop trying to rush clarity. You have permission to pause without guilt. Asterisk. To admit you don't have the answers. To live the question instead of forcing a conclusion. This isn't stagnation, it's gestation. And just like seeds beneath the soil, it doesn't look like growth, but it is. So how do you sit in the sacred in-between without spiraling? Here are 3 simple ways to hold that space. Take walks without a destination. No music, no multitasking. Let your feet lead without your mind needing to know where. Answers often arrive when you stop demanding them. Journal the question, not the solution. Open a page and write what feels off. Let yourself wander. Don't edit, don't fix, just observe. What repeats, what feels heavy, what is asking to be heard. Stop pushing for clarity. Start listening for it. Every time you feel the urge to rush a decision, pause and ask, is this urgency or fear? Wisdom doesn't shout, it whispers. The in-between is not the enemy, it is the terrain of becoming. It's where the old self loosens its grip and the truer self begins to unfold. Most people run from this space, but if you can stay, if you can hold still long enough, you'll find that what once felt like emptiness is actually the beginning of everything real. Growth doesn't always need an overhaul. Sometimes it just needs a rhythm. While the world shouts for more achievement, more attention, more everything, the Stoic quietly returns to what grounds them, not an extraordinary burst of clarity, but in simple, repeated acts of self-honesty. Because you're not trying to build a brand, you're trying to come home to yourself. You're not rebuilding your image, you're rebuilding your foundation, and foundations aren't formed in noise. They're built in the slow, subtle rituals that align your actions with your truth. So if you feel like you're floating outside your own life, start here with 3 minimalist Stoic rituals to begin your return. 1. Morning silence before you. Grab your phone, check the news, or speak a word to anyone else. Take 5 minutes of silence, no input, no performance. Just breath, stillness, yourself. Let this be the mental doorway between who the world wants you to be and who you actually are when nothing is demanded of you. 2. Evening reflection. At the end of your day, ask, what felt true for me today? And what didn't? Don't overthink it. Was there a conversation that felt off? A moment where you agreed to something and instantly regretted it? A time you felt proud, not because someone praised you, but because you stayed aligned. Before sleep, return to yourself. 3. Is this mine? Identity check-in through the day, especially when you're about to say yes, react defensively, or fall into familiar roles. Pause and ask, is this mine? Is this belief mine? Is this responsibility mine? Is this reaction mine? Or just the old script playing out again? These practices won't give you overnight clarity, but they'll give you something far more valuable. Connection, the slow, steady rebuild of self-trust. Epictetus said, first say to yourself what you would be, then do what you have to do. Let these daily checks be your say to yourself. Let your life flow from awareness, not distraction, because you don't need noise to feel alive. You need integrity in the quiet, consistent moments that nobody sees, but you always feel. There's a moment not dramatic, not loud, when you realize the ache you've been carrying was never a sign of something wrong. It was a sign of something real, not collapse, not failure, but realignment. Losing yourself, you were dropping the disguise, the strong one, the nice one, the do-idle one, the version of you who was praised for carrying everyone else, while quietly abandoning yourself, the version that wore a smile like armor, the one who delivered what the world asked for, but starved on the inside. Of course you're tired. Of course you feel disoriented, because you've been living someone else's script, and now you're waking up in the middle of the scene, realizing the lines don't fit anymore. But hear this, the discomfort you feel right now is not weakness. It's the cost of no longer betraying yourself. It's the moment you stop settling for looking whole and start becoming it. It's the sacred rupture where your old identity cracks open just far enough for truth to shine through. And that truth, you are not lost. You've simply outgrown the performance. And now, you're finally coming home. Not to another role. Not to a new mask, but to the quiet, grounded place inside you that's been whispering all along. There's more than this, and it begins with being real. So stay with it. Let the ache teach you. Let the silence lead you. Let the slowness rebuild you from the inside out. Because this is the return of you to you. If you felt this, comment below. I haven't lost myself. I'm finally listening. And if you're open to it, share the one moment that made you realize you'd outgrown yourself. Someone else might be standing in that same space right now. And subscribe not just for content, but for grounded soul-level reminders. For when the world starts moving too fast again, you don't have to perform your worth. You just have to come home, and you're already on your way.